I'm Lisa Grennan. I'm the Family Program Manager. Thanks for coming today. Our guest speaker is Laquan McKinley. He's a certified financial planner since 2000. He has an extensive background in personal financial planning, including investment advice, retirement planning, estate planning, and tax planning. Laquan currently serves at the members at the Michigan National Guard, as well as the Army, Navy, and Marine Reserves and their families. So just a couple things in case anybody early. Hopefully everyone got the handouts as you walked in, and the 5 handouts were from Laquan. I put 2 up there. One's a family caregiver support group, and March 9th, the first day, if anyone knows of anyone that would be interested in that. And the second one is actually on the opioid epidemic. And this is a national speaker that speaks all over the country. He's phenomenal. So that's on May 16th. So if anyone's interested or could let everyone know. And without any further ado, Laquan.
Good morning. I don't know if I'll use this all the way through because speaking without a microphone, and if you can hear me, I might just put it down. But my name is Laquan McKinley. I'm a certified financial planner out of Grand Rapids. And I currently work in Battle Creek area and all of West Michigan with active duty Guard and Reserve service members and their families doing personal financial counseling. So it's kind of weird this morning seeing everybody get here early because I'm used to doing these presentations for National Guard members. Are any of you ex-military or National Guard retirees? Yeah. Usually when I do these retirees for them, I'm sitting there waiting for people to come in, and we're starting late, but thank you all for being here. So I was asked to come out and do a presentation on saving and retirement, which I thought was kind of convenient with this being Military Saves Week. Military Saves Week is a movement to promote additional saving or increase saving or get started saving for military service members and their families. So I do presentations about this time about saving and investing, developing savings plans. But I guess we kind of wanted a message today about retirement with some folks in the room maybe thinking about retirement. So that's kind of what we'll talk about today, as well as a little bit about investing and saving. A lot of the reason why personal financial counseling was created was to help service members and their families relieve financial stress, because money creates stress for everybody. Either too much or too little. There's some kind of stress for everybody when it comes to money. So among talking about things like saving, managing credit properly, we also encourage people to start thinking about retirement. So let's do a little bit of that this morning. So we'll talk about retirement then and now, how retirement has changed over the years, different retirement income sources, retirement planning steps, military pension systems. I do a lot of this with military personnel, so we talk a lot about the military retirement systems. Not that different from government retirement systems. Other retirement options and some helpful resources to consider. So, see that picture up there? It's a little picture I put into Retirement Brief about George in his working years and George in retirement. So retirement nowadays for people is about control. It's about controlling what you do instead of having to do something to sustain your life. It's about being able to do what you want to do, but not really live any different in retirement than you do when you're working. So instead of sleeping on a job, George retires, he gets to sleep because he wants to. So that's what retirement has become for a lot of people, is being able to live the same way you do while you're working without having to work. So George has had an easy job, and he's got an easy job in retirement. But when you think about the way retirement has changed, retirement has kind of become something that you have control over, the way you live in retirement, kind of live the way you did when you were working without having to work. But there was a time ago when retirement was different. Retirements were short. People would work a a lot of years, often in one job. I mean, how many people you know nowadays have just one job? I have a sister that changed jobs, I think, 5 times in 1 year, um, which is normal. But people that come before us, older generations, would often work one job and spend 30, 40, 45 years in one occupation and work themselves to a nub and then reach retirement. And within a short amount of time, instead of being able to spend the rest of their years, a long retirement on the rocking chair or porch swing, they often end up dead within a short amount of time. I mean, how many of you know somebody that retired and then within a year, they were gone? I see it happen all the time. You work themselves so hard at one job, work themselves to the bone, have no energy left, and then they have no purpose, so they can't even live anymore. Retirements were simpler then. People retired from a hard-working job and they just rested their remaining years, whatever was left. And just about everybody that retired from a job retired with a pension. Pensions were common at once upon a time. Social Security and pensions were retirement income. Didn't have to save. Why would I save? I had a pension coming. And things costed less. It was easier to retire and live on the Social Security and pension. Well, nowadays, retirement is different. People are living longer. Not only are people living longer, people are retiring younger. You don't even have Social Security as an option in most cases because you're retiring in the 50s. You can't even take Social Security yet. Pensions are dying. Pensions are a dying breed. Government employees are one of the only employee sets in America that still receive a pension. Most of us will not. I had a job once. There was no pension available. I quit that job. Then I found out there are no pensions anywhere. I should have kept that job, maybe. No. But retirement, the definition has changed. People don't retire to sit on a rocking chair or a porch swing anymore. People are retiring to do something else. They're retiring from one occupation to start another, or retiring from one job to start a business. They're more active, traveling, moving around, doing different things, not just sitting and rotting on a porch swing. Social Security, not enough. Things cost more. You can't sustain a retirement on Social Security income. And pensions, of course, are dying. They're rare. And again, people are retiring younger. So if you're retiring younger, you don't even have Social Security as an option for 10, 12, 15 years. And you need more income to sustain your life in retirement. Things cost more now. Very important expense that can really affect a retirement is the cost of health care. The cost of health care in this country has gotten way out of control and becomes the #1 expense for most retirees that I've seen. So you need more income to retire successfully than you did 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. So retirement has changed. Because retirement has changed, it's important to plan. Develop a retirement plan. Develop a plan for everything you do in life, really. But specifically, when it comes to retirement, it's important to have a plan. Start thinking about your retirement ahead of time. The more advanced you start planning for retirement, the more likely it is to go the way you would like it to go. So this is kind of a brief overview of 5 basic steps to retirement planning. And this is one of the handouts out there as well, so you can pick up and take it with you. But the first most important step to a retirement plan is setting goals. If you don't know where you're going, any road can take you there, right? So when you're thinking about retirement, set a goal. Think about how you would want your life to be in retirement. Think about things you do now that you don't want to have to give up in retirement, or think about things that you would want to do in retirement that you can't do now. Be very specific in where you're living, who you're with, what you're doing, what's around you. Be very specific about how you want to live in retirement. I always tell people, think about people that you know that have retired before you. Think about how they live. What do you like about their lives in retirement that you would want to duplicate? Or what do you see that they're doing that you would want to do different? So if you start early setting a goal for retirement, developing a retirement plan, you paint like a picture in your mind. And the closer you get to retirement, you start adding details to that picture. Be very specific. Calculate your income. How much do you need to live in retirement without having to work? How much does it cost you to cover all your mandatory living expenses each month, as well as having the things that you want to have a happy retirement? Creating a portfolio of investments, of saving. How do you position your money to be saved, to grow, to earn the amount of income that you need to live successfully in retirement, as well as other retirement income sources. Think about that in your portfolio. And then review your plan. You make a plan early enough, in advance. As things change, you go back to your plan, make changes as necessary, add more details to that picture in your mind of how you want to live in retirement, and then update it as necessary as things change in your life. So we talk about setting a goal. The most important piece of a retirement plan, I think it's the most important piece in life, really, is to have goals. What's life if you don't have goals that you're trying to accomplish? I think it's a great thing for everyone to do in everything you do, but especially in retirement. So here on this slide, we have a goal example. Goal number 1 says, I want to save enough money to retire on. Goal number 2 says, by age 63, I have $800,000 in my TSP account. And the question is, which is the SMART goal? Well, SMART goal. SMART goals is not just smart to set a goal or to have a goal that's smart. SMART is actually an acronym. It's SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time specific. So goal number 1 says, I want to save enough to retire on. Well, so does everybody. If a goal can be applied to everybody, that's not a very specific goal. What is enough? Everybody's different. Enough is different for everybody. Not only is enough different for everybody, but the definition of retire is different for different people. What does a retire mean to you? For some, that means a life in a house coat and house shoes with a newspaper. For others, that means I just leave one job and go start something else. I finished one chapter of my life to go start a new one. Retirement means different things to different people. So that's not a specific goal at all. Second one, I will have $800,000 in my TSP account by age 63. Got some specifics in there. Got an age, got an amount, got a savings vehicle. That person can measure their progress. Depending on what age they are, how much they've currently saved, they can say, well, in 5 years I'll have this much, 10 years I'll have that much, and then I know how much further I have to go to reach my goal. Be specific. So when you're setting your retirement plan, setting your goal for retirement, that picture in your mind, be very specific. Where are you? How are you dressed? What color is your shirt? Who's around you? What are you doing? How's the weather? What do you see? And as you get closer and closer to retirement, add details. Well, that color is green, like a Michigan State shirt. The sun is shining. There are palm trees. Or I'm standing in front of a grand opening of my new business. Add details to that picture. The more details you add, the more real it becomes in your mind, the more likely you'll find yourself in that very moment. That can be very powerful stuff to set a goal in your mind, write it down, say it out loud, see how it sounds to you, see how it sounds to someone else. It makes it more likely to happen. Truly believe that. I've seen it happen to too many people for it not to be real. Be very specific in the goals that you set, not only in retirement, but in everything else. When we talk about retirement income sources, there are 4 main areas of retirement income that retirees use to sustain their lives. There's Social Security, there's pensions. Again, pensions are dying. Most of you government employees, you're fortunate to have a pension that you may be receiving very soon and not having to work to receive that money. But most of Americans don't have that option. Social Security is dying slower, but it's dying as well. A lot of people can't rely on Social Security as a source of retirement income. There's earned income. Again, some people retire from one occupation and go do something else, still earning money, but retired from one occupation. I work with some retirees that are busier now in retirement than they were when they were working. I work with some retirees that make more money now than they did when they were working. Retirement means different things to different people. And then there's individual accounts and savings. That's the most important piece. That's the most powerful piece of retirement income sources, because that piece gives you options. It opens up a whole new book of options for retirement. Because even if you have a pension, or even if you have Social Security, if you saved money, additional money for your retirement, that's extra money you can use to do the things that you want, or to cover things that you didn't plan for, unexpected expenses. So that's the most important piece. If you take that one away, and all of a sudden you're not old enough for Social Security, or it's not enough, or you're not old enough to get your pension, or you didn't work in a job long enough for it to be very much of a pension, then that earned income piece, which a lot of people choose to do, all of a sudden you're forced to do. Forced to find a job. Well, maybe you don't want to work. Maybe you do want a life in a house coat and house shoes with a newspaper, but there's not enough income to sustain and cover your expenses, so you're forced to work. How many of you know someone in retirement that has to take a job? Had to take a job. Who wants to work when they have to? You want to do something when you want to. You want to do things that you like to do. Saving can keep you from being in a position where you're forced to work. When we talk about saving, how do we save? So I work with a lot of military service members, young military service members. We have to teach them how to save, the very basics of saving. Or once you develop the basics of saving, how to save more. So we use different types of budgets, budget planning. People hate doing budgets. One of the handouts I gave you is a spending plan worksheet. A sheet of paper with this long list of budget items. It's not hard to figure out why people hate to do budgets, because it's so much information you have to keep track of. People spend a lot of money on a lot of different things every month. Doing a budget is tiring. It's like applying for a mortgage or something. So here, this is a budget. This is a pie chart. It's a representation of a budget with 3 very broad categories. This is the type of budget I can get with. This is 3 categories, not 850 like most budgets. So this is what we call the 70-20-10 rule. This is kind of a baseline figure that every budget should be able to fit into. It's not something that you have to do, but it's kind of a test for your own monthly expenses. So this is a pie chart where the biggest piece of the pie, 70%, is living expenses. That's living expenses relating to how much it costs you to live, where you live, maintain a household, eat, and have transportation. Everyone has living expenses. That's not new to anybody. Whether you're working or retired, everyone has living expenses. The 70% is kind of a measurement to see whether where your living expenses actually stack up to where you can say whether or not I bought too much house or I'm living very well beneath my means. The second largest piece is debt repayment. So that 20% of net income every month would be used for debt repayment. Now, some of you may look sideways at that and say, well, I don't have any debt to repay, because we're not talking about mortgage here. We're talking about consumer debt, credit cards, car loans, and such. So a lot of you might not have those things to deal with in your budget. But remember, I work with a lot of military service members. Debt is in a significant percentage of service members' budgets, at least those under the age of 30. So we talk about how much should be used to pay off debt. And then the smallest piece, representing 10% of the spending plan pie, is savings. But even though savings here is listed at 10%, smallest piece, it is the most important piece. So how do you start to save? You make it important. You make it the most important item in a budget. We use several different spending plan worksheets, budgeting worksheets, how to develop your spending plan, how to take care of credit and debt. Number one item on every sheet, no matter how detailed, is always saving. Make it a priority. PYF, pay yourself first. ABS, always be saving. Not analog brake system, always be saving. Number one item on any budget. So if you're one of those who don't have debt to take care of, you don't have to allocate money to paying off debt, then guess what? You don't have that 20% pie, so guess what savings can do? Save more. Save more, grow more options. So savings, number one item on a budget. That's how you start to save. You make it more important than the mortgage bank, make it more important than the car loan company, make it more important than Netflix, make it more important than Amazon, and everything else you spend money on. Number one item on every budget should be saving. Those of you that are college football fans, team that wins the college football playoff, I think that was the Clemson Tigers this year. Number one team in college football, right? Saving. Number one item on a budget. That's how you start to save. So if you looked at, take away the pie chart, start getting into all these categories on the spending plan worksheet, you start to write these items down. Write down all your living expenses. Got a 70% reminder there. Write down what you're applying to debt. If that's zero, good for you. Saving. It's the bottom of the screen here, bottom left of the screen, saving and investing. But again, number one most important item on a spending plan and a budget is what am I saving? Saving first. So that's one of the handouts is a copy of that spending plan worksheet where you can list all of your monthly expenses, list all the places where you're saving, as well as what you're paying towards debt. And see if your monthly spending plan fits in that 70-20-10 rule. Oh, I see hands going up with questions. If you have a question, please write it down so that you don't forget. There'll be a time afterwards where we do some question and answer. Sorry about that. So saving, most important item on your spending plan. The number one ranked item in a budget. It's important to save. It's important to save early. This here is a depiction of the power of compounding. So what this is meant to illustrate is that the earlier you start saving, the better off you'll be. That a head start in saving is a head start that cannot be overcome. So over here on the left, we have someone that starts saving at age 25. Someone starts saving $3,000 a year, $250 a month. They do that for 10 years, and then they stop. Don't save another dime. $3,000 saved over 10 years, $30,000. That $30,000 invested at 8%, and by the time they reach age 65, they would have $472,000. Person on the right waits 10 years later, starts saving the same $3,000 a year, but they do so for 30 years. They do so all the way up until age 65. They save more, $3,000, 30 years, $90,000 saved, same rate of return, $367,000 is what that person accumulates. So even though they saved more, they put away more dollars into saving, they end up with less money than the person that started first. So this is not to say that you have to start saving at age 25. I'm not suggesting you need to go find a DeLorean, hop in a time machine, and go back in time and start saving at 25. What this does show is that the earlier you start, the better off you'll be. So saving today will accumulate more dollars than waiting until tomorrow. So the moral of the story is start saving sooner rather than later. A head start in saving is a head start that cannot be overcome. Here's a little visual depiction of pensions nowadays. Again, pensions are dying. So over here on the left, we got someone in the public sector trying to cut our pensions. Person on the right working in the private sector, what's a pension? Pensions are dying. Most of young people have no idea what a pension is. There are different types of pensions. Pension can be a very important piece of a retirement plan. If you're going to receive a pension, a check every month for the service years you provided, you're very fortunate. I work with a lot of people that have retired. I can say without a doubt, the ones that receive a pension are a lot happier than the ones who don't. It's a very valuable benefit. It's a very valuable tool for a retirement plan. It's a very valuable tool to have income in retirement that you didn't have to do a whole lot of saving of your own money to create a fund that pays you every month. So defined benefit is what a pension is. An employer puts money away for you on your behalf for your retirement. Over on the left is what most of us have to use to create a retirement fund, defined contribution plans. TSP accounts, 401k accounts, 457 accounts. These are defined contribution plans. You only get out of it what you put into it. That's what retirement is for most people nowadays. If you don't save, no retirement fund. So know the difference. Defined benefit, this happy gentleman over on the left receiving a check every month. All he has to do is go to the mailbox and there it is. Folks on the right, defined contribution, they're basically giving. The more you give, the more you get. Again, person on the left, very happy, smiling with that check in his hand. Pensions make people happy. One on the right, working very hard to build a retirement fund. Working very hard. That's why saving has to be very important. You have to be willing to do it. You have to commit to it. Make it the #1 item in your spending plan so that all your hard work pays off and you have money to retire on, to be happy in retirement. So here's a little slide with the military pension plan overview. Not all of you are military, but the reason I left this slide in is to kind of illustrate how pensions are dying. Every single option listed here of the military pensions will be gone in a few months. Very few service members that I know of have a final pay pension computation. Most have the high 36. Some took the CSB Redux, but those options will all be gone after this year. So now any new military enlistees will have a new blended retirement system that includes more what? Defined contribution. Less money coming from the government, more money has to come from you. You have to save for your retirement. Pensions are dying. Another good piece in this slide is the far right column, cost of living adjustments, keeping pace with inflation, getting a raise in your pension, getting a raise in your Social Security. Inflation, once upon a time, 3-4%. Things would cost more each year, but you get more in your pension each year. Yesterday, I looked at the cost of living adjustment for the FERS pension is what, 0.3%? That's very slightly more than you get on a bank savings account nowadays. Inflation has changed from what it used to be, except in one very important area, and that's healthcare. Healthcare has kind of its own inflation, double digits in a lot of cases. So healthcare becomes a very important piece. If you have a pension, if you have healthcare from your employer, again, that's another very valuable piece. You're very fortunate to have that coming up in your retirement plan. So inflation, traveling down the economic highway, inflation can flatten, steamroll a pension or retirement plan, particularly as it pertains to healthcare. So other retirement options, other than a pension. If you're getting a pension, that's great. But again, to have options in retirement, have additional things you can do with your life in retirement, it's important to look at other saving options, like thrift savings plan. Also, you have TSP accounts available to you that you've contributed money to over the years, hopefully. TSP is highly underutilized on the uniform side of government employment. Civilian government employees tend to use their TSP a lot more, tend to contribute a lot more. That's good. that gives you more options in retirement when you're putting money away in a TSP. Plus, that government matching contribution doesn't hurt, right? Social Security. A lot of us will receive Social Security income. It is dying like pensions, but again, dying a much slower death than pensions. Why does Social Security die much slower than pensions? Because all of us are still paying Social Security taxes. There's still money to sustain the Social Security fund because those of us that keep working keep paying into it. So it stays around a little longer. 401ks. Some of you may have left jobs where you had a 401k, or maybe some of you have a second job where you have a 401k. 401k is the civilian version of the TSP. They're the same thing, basically, except government employees, TSP, civilian employees get 401k. Some of you may work for a fire department or police department. They don't call it a 401k, they call it a 457. Some of you may work for a hospital, called a 403b. Same thing, TSP, 401k, 403b. IRAs, another good way to save for retirement. Roth IRAs, you can put $5,500 or $6,500 into a Roth IRA, have your money invested to grow, take that money out tax-free in a Roth IRA. Tax-free saving, a very powerful benefit. And then other saving and investing that you can do. So the thrift savings plan. Thrift savings plan, I always highly encourage the use, maximizing thrift savings plan contributions. I always say the thrift savings plan to young service members that it's like 3 scoops of ice cream. TSP and tax deferral accounts provide benefits in 3 ways. It's automatic saving, which is the best way to save automatically. You enroll in the TSP, sign up to contribute a percentage of your pay. Every time you get paid, you're saving. You don't even have to do anything else. Automatic saving. Once that money is saved inside the TSP account, it is being invested. It's automatic investing. Your money is being saved, put into one of the TSP investment options, and invested for growth. You don't even have to do anything. And then the third benefit is tax savings. So if you're utilizing traditional TSP, putting money into your TSP account, every time you put money in, it's like a tax deduction. Tax-deferred TSP contributions is no different than mortgage interest or property taxes. It's a tax deduction. You're saving on taxes. Or if you're utilizing the Roth TSP, you don't get a deduction for money that you put in, but when you get to take the money out, it's all tax-free. Tax-free money. Automatic saving, automatic investing, tax savings. TSP, it's a great benefit. Highly recommend you use it. Roth TSP, again, tax-free earnings. So money you put in is invested to grow. The money you put in is yours tax-free. The earnings it accumulates is yours tax-free. That's a beatdown of the IRS. Who doesn't want to beat the IRS? I love beating the IRS. So I encourage everybody to use your Roth TSP, use your Roth IRAs, keep your tax money away from the IRS. So TSP investment options. I meet a lot of service members and some government employees who don't like to use the TSP because they don't understand the investment options. Well, I happen to like the TSP investment options. Why? It's simple, very simple. There are like 500,000 mutual funds in the world today. You can invest your money in any different number of investment vehicles and different types of accounts with investment companies. The TSP has narrowed it way down, made it very simple. There are 5 individual investment options. When you put money into the TSP, it automatically goes into what's called the G Fund. G Fund, also known as Good Enough or Guaranteed or Government Securities. G Fund is like a savings account, pays you a fixed rate of interest, it never goes down, but doesn't grow very fast either. So you have other options. You have the F Fund. The F Fund is like the G Fund, except it's a little bit more risky. So it's investing in government bonds, securities, fixed income securities with a fixed rate of interest, but it can go up and down in value just a little bit. a little bit more risk, no guarantee. Then you get into the skydivers, the real risky bunch of the TSP investments, the stock funds. So you have C Fund, where you can buy the largest companies in the US-based companies. Think GM, Walmart, Apple, large companies based in the US. You have the S Fund, which is comprised of stocks of companies that aren't quite as big as GM and Walmart and Apple, but US-based companies that have stocks issued for sale. And then you have the I Fund, which is comprised of companies around the world, stocks of companies around the world. So by utilizing each of the individual TSP funds in 5 simple investments, you can have all the investments anybody else can have in any other type of investment account. Very simple. Simple is good. Or if you don't want to allocate your money into each of these individual options, short as the list may be, concise as the list may be, you have the L funds. Guess what the L fund does? Allocates it for you. So if you're not into investments, you don't want to figure out how much to put in the C fund, you don't want to figure out how much to put in the S fund, you have no idea what the F fund is, who gives the F fund, pick the L fund. Put your money in the L fund, 100% contributions to the L fund, they're doing it for you. They're allocating it for you. All being done for you. Set it and forget it. Save, lather, rinse, repeat. Don't even have to worry about doing anything else. So, in sum, pick an L fund, set it and forget it. Don't worry about your investments. Just look at your statements when they show up every quarter or monthly or however often they send them nowadays. Or if you're into investing, make your own mix. Pick how much you want in each fund, F fund, C fund, S fund, or I fund. But if you have money in the TSP account, you've never gone to tsp.gov to change your investments, all your money is in the G fund. So you've never lost money, but you haven't gained very much. 401ks, same thing. 401ks, remember, again, civilian version of the TSP. Same format, same types of investments, usually using mutual funds just like the TSP, except they probably have more options available. Some of them also have a mimic of the L fund. They call them target date funds or target retirement funds. Same thing. If you don't want to pick individual investments, pick one of those where the allocation is being done for you. Matching contributions, if you have a 401k job, civilian employer, make sure you contribute enough to get your full matching contribution. Don't contribute enough to get your full matching contribution, it's like throwing money in the trash. Don't throw your money in the trash. If you learn nothing else today, learn that you don't throw your money in the trash. Get all your money. IRAs, again, Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs. Roth IRAs is a preferred method of saving because of the tax-free nature. You don't get a deduction for the money you save, but the earnings and the dollars you contribute, all yours, tax-free. Tell the IRS to go kick rocks. You're taking your Roth IRA money and you're not paying taxes. Some of you may have side business. So instead of using a traditional IRA, where your income may be too high to use a deduction, they have what's called SEP IRAs or simple IRAs, where you can contribute a portion of your profits to a retirement account and get your tax deferral, get your tax deduction. So there are several types of IRAs you can use in addition to your TSP, 401ks, and the pension that's going to be coming for hopefully most or all of you. And then there are our old friend Social Security. Social Security. When should I take Social Security? Should I take it as soon as I can? What if I wait? What if I want to work? Can I really wait till 70 to get my full retirement benefit from Social Security? Those are all very good questions. The answer is different for everybody. But right now, there is a Social Security out there. It's going to be up to you to decide when you want to take that Social Security. But they do make it worth your while if you're able to wait until age 70. Those 8% increase in your Social Security benefit can be very, very valuable. Most of you that, if you're married, you have additional options of when you can take Social Security or which benefits you can use for Social Security, and maybe you can wait to receive your own benefit. So make a plan. Take it back to the very beginning. Remember George at work and George in retirement. Think about your version of that, what you're doing now, what you want to trade from work to move into in retirement. Do you want it to be all the same, or do you want to do something different? Make a plan. Review your plan. Set goals. Be specific. Update your plan. Say it out loud. Talk to others about it. See how it sounds to them. Think about people you know that are retired, that have been retired. Think about how they live. Think about how you would want to duplicate or be different from them. Test drive your plan. Take a few months out and pick an income income amount. See how I would live on it. See how you do with a percentage of your current take-home pay. What if you took away some of it and didn't have it available to you? See how you would do for a few months. Test drive it. It gives you very valuable information about what kind of plan you have and how it might need to change, what might need to improve. But the moral is, the earlier you start, the more you start thinking about retirement before you get there, the more planning you can do, the more you can make it more like your ideal scenario. So resources, always refer service members and their families to Military OneSource. It's a very valuable website, not only for military, but for everyone. Very, very valuable information on saving and retirement and investments. So militaryonesource.mil is a very valuable, resourceful website to use. Any of you that are veterans, that's also a very good place to go and find military discounts. So military discounts often are not advertised. Places that offer military discounts don't advertise that information to the public. So if you are a veteran, you have an ID card, before you reach for any form of payment, when you go someplace, always reach for your ID card and ask for a discount. You never know how much you can save. So in addition to Military OneSource, Social Security, SSA.gov, that's where you would go to start gathering information about your Social Security benefit. One of the handouts also included some information about how your Social Security benefit is computed. TSP.gov, you got your money in the G fund and your TSP. TSP.gov is where you go to reallocate. If you want to pick an L fund, that's where you go to pick an L fund. If you want to buy more C fund because of the Trump rally is raging on and you want to get your money in some stocks, get some of that growth, that's where you go to change your TSP investments, TSP.gov. And then there's militarypay.defense.gov has additional retirement calculators that you can use to run certain retirement scenarios and compute how much money you can accumulate in your TSP and other savings accounts. So I don't know how clear that is, but this is someone that is obviously retiring without a pension because they don't think very much of the retirement package. Got some nice gardening books and jigsaw puzzles. But if you are not retiring to a porch swing, if you are transitioning from one career to the other and you're thinking about starting a business, there are lots of community resources available to those of you starting a business. SCORE.org, it's an organization of retired business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs. You can get free counseling on developing a business plan and getting a business started from the ground up. If you're thinking of buying a franchise, they have experts in franchising. They can give you advice and kind of mentor you on the road to starting and getting your business going. Government employees have kind of an inside track to government contracting. If you're starting a business and you're looking to get into government contracting, you want to become familiar with your local PTAC representative. PTACsofmichigan.org. It's an organization that helps businesses find and obtain government contracts. So if you're thinking of starting a business and you might want to get into government contracting, use some of your government experience and contacts and relationships you've built. Find your local PTAC center and get familiar with the representatives over there. They're a good resource for getting a business off the ground. And with that, that's kind of the end of the presentation. So hopefully, if any of you had any questions, that you didn't forget them, that you wrote them down and you're ready to ask, and I'll be happy to answer. Any questions? Yes. Yeah, if you're saving 10% of your gross income, yeah, you're actually saving a very good amount. That's higher than the minimum, which is kind of 10% of net income. So if you're saving 10% of your gross income, you're actually ahead of a lot of people. So the objective with TSP contributions or employer-sponsored retirement plans like TSP and 401ks is to be able to save more. So there's a upper limit, right, on TSP contributions. You can put in up to $18,000 if you're under age 50. So if you start with a percentage, every time you get a raise, try to increase it by the amount of that raise. Aim for that upper limit. Very good. Yes, ma'am. Yes, when you get to the point where you're going to need that money to actually utilize it for your monthly expenses, then yes, you want G fund, not C fund.
So if you still have a few years.
No, not if you're not going to be spending that money next week. Why not let it grow some more? Yeah.
Thank you.
Or again, the L funds do it for you. So if you pick an L fund with the target date of 2020 or 2030, then they're going to switch your allocation from the aggressive CS and I funds down to the safer G and F fund.
Going back to the traditional Roth IRAs, I've noticed that you put on the slide it's a 10% tax deduction for traditional when you withdraw. That's including what you put in and what you have earned, correct?
There's a 10% penalty
Okay.
possible
For
withdrawals.
younger generations, would you recommend, because our employer now matches into the traditional IRA account, although I contribute to the Roth. For younger generations, would you recommend them taking that 10% hit, moving it to the Roth, so we're not getting taxed on our earnings in the future?
So the 10% penalty comes into play when you take money out. What you're suggesting is actually transferring from traditional over to Roth. The 10% penalty wouldn't apply to a transfer. You can transfer a rollover money from an IRA or a TSP without penalty.
So you can move the money without being penalized from traditional to Roth.
Yes. So what happens is when you do that, you do pay taxes on that balance. Because remember, traditional money has never been taxed. So
Correct.
if you're going to move it from traditional over to Roth, you have to pay taxes on that money you never paid taxes on. But there's no penalty.
Would you recommend a younger individual to move that money? So, because the way I'm looking at it is, as in the traditional, you're going to get taxed, and then you're subject to the penalty. Now, if you move it over to the Roth, whatever you earn off that money, then you're not going to get taxed on it. It's all tax free.
That's right.
Would you recommend younger individuals to move that money from traditional to Roth?
It depends. So what happens is when most young college graduates or young service members start out earning money, they're earning very little money. So that means low taxes, right? So the deduction that you would generate from traditional TSP or IRA contributions isn't that significant. So why not, when your income is low, when your tax is low, you just do all Roth?
So it goes off your income
Yes.
on how much you will be taxed to move that money over.
That's right. So what I do with a lot of people that have traditional 401k balances, and they get to the point where they want to retire or transition, when you reach the point where your income drops, then you take that traditional money and you roll it over to the Roth in the year where your tax is low, and then it's all tax-free. Or if you are going to have very low income in retirement, you don't have a pension, which most of us don't, or you're not going to have Social Security or not very much of it, then you just leave it the way it is because you're paying very little tax on money you never paid taxes on in the first place. So the answer is, with a lot of things, it depends.
Regarding the Roth IRA, is there rules or regulations on how much we make, and like, is there a cap on income as far as like, okay, so I make X amount of dollars, say I made $30,000 a year. Is there like a maximum amount that we make that we can still use the Roth IRA? Because I've heard a lot of good things about it, and that's what I'm using. But I don't want to get to a point where the IRS comes back and bites me in the rear and said, hey, you made too much and you weren't supposed to be using it. You know what I mean?
The answer to your question is yes. There is a income limit for utilizing a Roth IRA. It's a lot higher than $30,000 though.
I was just giving you a number.
So it's six figures,
Okay.
near six figures for a single taxpayer.
Okay.
That you can utilize the Roth IRA.
Does that like matter if you're married or single? Do they let you make more if you're married?
That's
or?
right.
Okay.
Yep. It's a very high number if you're filing a joint return, whether or not you can utilize a Roth IRA. And the IRS would not come back later and say you couldn't have used a Roth IRA. That's an annual thing. If you're over the income limit, you have to get money out of a Roth IRA. It cannot stay there. But yes, there is an income limit.
And can I ask you about the savings plan? Like you told us we need to be saving 10%. Okay, so say I'm putting 5% in my Roth IRA. I guess, I mean, maybe I just answered my own question. So that's what I'm doing right now. I just figured it out. I'm putting in 5% into my Roth. So would you recommend, like, how much do you recommend to people, like, as far as, okay, putting in X amount into like a retirement fund and then X amount into a savings account per se? I mean, do you have a certain amount that you would recommend? Depends on how much you can afford.
All that is relevant. There are no specific amounts, but if you're saving in a Roth IRA, that's something that you would hope to be using for retirement income, right? So other savings would be, you have to do other saving because there's a possibility you might need money now. You might need money tomorrow because the car broke or the refrigerator broke or the furnace broke or a cousin needs some money to be bailed out of jail or something. There's a possibility you'll need money for things you hadn't planned for. So money you save for emergencies shouldn't necessarily go into a Roth IRA because you need something in cash that you can access quickly. So there are different types of saving. There's retirement saving, and there's current saving for emergencies or unexpected expenses. Yes, ma'am.
Laquan, I had a question. So say someone's maxing out their traditional TSP or IRA, can they still contribute to the Roth? Are those two separate, or does the government figure those are both together and it's the max? What's the max you can do? They add those together?
That's correct. There is one limit. So $18,000 for TSP, 401k, 403b, $5,500 or $6,500 for IRA. So you can't put $5,500 in a traditional IRA and $5,500 in a Roth IRA. It's one or the other. Same with the traditional TSP and Roth TSP. It's one limit. There's a higher limit at 50 or older. 24,000.
And
Yes.
then you're saying the 5,500 into the Roth too, or no, that's including that 24 or whatever?
Well, the
max.
TSP limit of 18,000 and the IRA limit of 5,500 are different. So you can put 18,000 into your TSP and put 5,500 into an IRA.
Okay.
Yes.
In order to get our match, we have to put it into the regular TSP, right? Because they don't match your Roth. So you should make sure you at least put 5% in the traditional or the regular TSP so that you get your 5% free from the government, and then put other money into the Roth. Is that right?
You have to contribute to one or the other. Your matching contributions will go into the traditional TSP, but you can contribute to either one.
So they will match your contribution even if you're just giving into the Roth TSP?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. I have a question about Social Security. So the age of retirement versus the time that you withdraw, do you reduce your Social Security? Like if you decide to retire at age 60, but you don't withdraw your Social Security until age 67, does that lower your benefit if you don't work until age 67? Or does your benefit stay basically the same?
Which benefit? Pension or
Social Security.
Social Security? No. You're getting a lower, but you get a reduced benefit starting at age 62.
But if you don't take it, then it doesn't.
Grows.
So you can actually retire. It's just the time that you actually take the benefit. That's what I was wondering.
Yes.
Okay.
And you're not eligible until you're age 62. So if you retire at age 55, 58, 60, you're not eligible to receive Social Security.
But it
till
won't
62.
hurt like what you earn or what you would be entitled to later.
Oh,
Okay.
other questions?
As we get these estimates for, for Social Security and pension and the TSP, what kind of expectations do we have? How much of that are we going to lose for taxes? Do you have a ballpark estimate?
Without knowing exact numbers, no. The only thing that I can really say without knowing specifics is that your Social Security, the amount of Social Security that will be taxed will be influenced by the amount of other income that you have from pension, other earned income, or money you take out of savings. So, for example, if all you have is Social Security income, you pay very little in tax. It's a very good chance you pay no taxes if all you have is Social Security. But once you start adding in pension and other sources of income, it increases the taxation of your Social Security. There's a direct relation between how much your Social Security is taxed and other income. But when it comes to other income, like your pension, that is going to be taxed fully at federal level and probably some of it at the state level. But without knowing specifics, it's hard to say how much you could expect because some have smaller pensions, some have larger pension amounts that they'll be receiving, and there's a direct relationship between the taxation of Social Security and extra income. Yeah, so that slide referenced the military retirement. So for new enlistees to the military, they will have a different retirement plan starting in January. So all those options on that slide are going away for the military side. That has no impact on the civilian side. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes. It's $5,500 for those under 50, $6,500 for 50 and older.
I have tons of questions. Would you recommend people actually sitting down individually with a financial planner to help get through some of the weeds of this stuff?
Well, you're asking someone who does financial planning for a living whether someone should sit down with the financial planner for any reason whatsoever. The answer is yes.
Right. That's the next question. Do you have a card? So
Yes.
I just kind of wanted to go back to your 2010-70 split when it comes to savings. Do you you talked about the difference between retirement savings and your, cost of living or your living savings. Do you recommend that savings, the 10%, be for retirement, or is that total?
That is a total figure because everyone needs savings for different items in life. There's retirement saving that you should be thinking about, but more important, there are present needs. Again, the car breaking, the refrigerator breaking, the furnace, someone needs help. So there's that piece first, because that piece is always with you right away. Retirement is for the future, and it's something you should always plan for. That's what we talk about, making a plan. So, but if you have saving in your monthly spending plan, then you are able to set aside money that you have for unexpected needs, as well as saving for the future. So 10% saving may not cover everything you need to save for, But once you make it a part of your monthly spending plan, at least gets you started on that track. And then you're able to find ways to save more. And if you have a pension coming, then you might not need to save as much for retirement. Or if you don't have a pension coming, then you know how much more you do need to save. But the message is always to make it part of your monthly spending plan first. I don't think I put any contact information on the slide, but phone number locally is 571-421-6443. Laquan McKinley. I don't know how many cards I have, but I have some. But thank everyone for coming. Appreciate you coming out.